Good evening. Welcome to our virtual launch of Kimmy and Mike by Dave Paddon and Lily Snowden-Fine. Thanks for joining us. We've been watching a little video of Lily doing one of the wonderful illustrations for the book. I want to thank everybody who's joining us. And I have a couple of other little thanks to do. And then the way things are going to unwind this evening, Dave is going to do a brief reading. We have a little pre-recorded interview or conversation between Dave and Lily that we'll play. And then we'll let them take questions from people who have logged on, who want to ask about the book or their process, or just extend their congratulations. So the first thing I'd like to do is thank all of you again for coming and joining us this evening. I'd like to thank our funders for the publication of the books, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Canada Book Fund, and the Newfoundland and Labrador's Department of Tourism, Culture, Recreation, and Arts, all of whom have very generously supported the publication of the book. And I also want to thank our little tech wizard here, Rachel Dragland, who is making sure that things go smoothly this evening, or relatively smoothly. This is each time we do a virtual launch, it's a bit of a new adventure. So I hope all goes well and that you enjoy the conversation and the reading and have a chance to connect with Dave and Lily. So I'll introduce you to the stars of the evening. Dave Paddon is a Newfoundlander born and raised in Labrador. He came to writing rather late. He was a pilot for many years, had a very successful career. Then he decided, he got a bit of sense and decided to move back home to Newfoundland. And not long after coming back, he fell into the arts community here, which is always rich and thriving, and he started doing recitations. I heard from a friend a recitation Dave had done one night at a dinner party and thought that sounded pretty neat. So I asked him if we could do a letterpress printed book. That was 10, 12, 13 years ago, and Dave, since that time, has written another 39 or 40 recitations, and we've published all told 19 of them, I think, in one format or another. Maybe not quite. A lot of them. We've published a lot of them in one format or another.
I don't have that many fingers.
And this is the one that we're celebrating tonight, which is Kimmy and Mike. Oops. And it has been beautifully illustrated by Lily Snowden-Fine. Lily is I would say an emerging illustrator because she's just graduated a couple of years ago from the Ontario College of Art and Design, but she's already got 4 books published, and she's got another one coming out this fall with Owl Kids called The Deepest Dig. And she's doing beautiful, beautiful work, and I know people are going to be clamoring to work with her, and we're just thrilled beyond belief to have had the opportunity to do this. Lily is joining us from Vancouver, where please tell me it's lovely and sunny and bright. In Newfoundland, we're having a snowstorm, so that's it. It's a big country, but it's wonderful to see words from one side of it and artwork from the other coming together to make such a beautiful, beautiful book. So without further ado, I'll ask Dave to give us part of the recitation, and then I'll come back on and gather things together before we start the conversation.
Okay, I guess everybody can hear me okay. I hope so. Yeah, here we go. Kimmy and Mike. I'm having a little trouble with my voice, excuse me. It has often been said, and I can't disagree, that there's no one as tough as our folk of the sea. But 2 of the toughest, if the rights of it was known, were Kimmy and Mike, who lived in Balorn. Now, one day last year, in a moderate gale, in a 16-foot punt with a double reef sail, they went to go fishing in their usual spot with orders from Mom. Get something for the pot. They got a few sculpins, hauled up some kelp, tried a few different places, but nothing would help. Oh my, said Mike, looks like a dead lass. I know now, said Kimmy. Mother won't be some cross. We'll try somewhere else, said Mike with a sigh. Perhaps down around Nain or Ireland's Eye. So hoist up the sail so tight as a bar. Don't bother, said Kim, I can sculler that far. But the fish wouldn't bite, and their luck surely stank in the Gulf or the Straits around Funk Island Bank. Let's try across the pond, said Mike with a smile. All right, said Kim, but you scull for a while. Well, 2 hours later, they were anchored off France, having passed through 2 hurricanes, Elfie and Blanche, with waves 60 feet and winds 90 knots. Not too bad, thought Kim, a bit of a lop. But there was nothing off France, nothing off Spain, except a small submarine that they threw back again. While crossing the equator, they hauled up a squid with 60-foot arms and a 30-foot head. Oh my, said Mike, that's a giant one, I think. He had just gotten slouched with a puncheon of ink. Throw it back, said Kim. Mother don't like them things, but they cut off one arm for a meal of rings. Off the Cape of Good Hope, they got into a fog. For 2 or 3 hours it was thick as a bog. When it finally cleared up off some Antarctic bay, 100-mile iceberg was blocking their way. Oh my, said Mike, there's one thing then another, trying to get supper for father and mother. That's right, boy, said Kim. I can't see a way through, so pass up that axe till I claves it in two. A short while later, off the coast of Somalia, they ran into some pirates who said, we'll kill ya. There, that's about half of it. It gets a little more adventurous after that. So I guess the book will reveal the rest of it.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was great. It was great fun. And I will say that this evening, if you're tuning into the launch, we're going to have a special, if you buy the book through our website, runningthegoat.com, and use the coupon code Kimmy when you check out, you'll get free shipping anywhere in Canada. And that would be on your entire order. So that's a little incentive. But also, we love independent bookstores here at Running the Goat. So if you're not in the Newfoundland, in the St. John's area, by all means, you can ask your local independent to order the book if it's not in stock already. And you can tell them that it's distributed in Canada by Nimbus Books. In the St. John's area, the book is already available at Twisted Sisters, the Newfoundland Weavery, Hillhead House, the Travel Bug, the Pantry, and Posey Road, as well as, of course, in our Torres Coast print shop. So there's lots of opportunities. It's available online through Chapters as well. But always remember your independent bookstore if you possibly can, because they are important and we need them. So next, what we're going to do, as I said, we're going to have this little interview with Dave and Lily, this conversation that we've pre-recorded. And when that's done, we'll come back and chat a little bit and welcome any comments or conversation that you would like to engage in.
I really like the illustrations you did for my recitations. That's that way around, yeah. And I'm just wondering how you came up with the idea for them. Is it a pattern you've used before, or was this a new sort of illustration technique?
Yeah, well, the medium gouache is one of my favorite to use because it has this vibrancy and playfulness while also being able to easily mix some very mature sounding feeling colors. And in terms of the composition, I wanted to do something a little bit more symmetrical and feeling like one of those vintage plate illustrations to go with the mood of your writing. Something that felt very traditional and kind of folk arty, like a vintage book you'd find. And so that was really fun to play with, and that I hadn't really done before. So it was exciting to kind of try and create these new compositions with my normal techniques as well.
Okay, so I find it kind of intriguing because, I wrote the thing and then you had to figure out a way to illustrate it. If you did a bunch of illustrations, I don't know how I'd go about writing a story to fit them.
True, so, but maybe you'd be inspired and it would create something really new and different. And sometimes for that, like the personal work that I do is never the same as when I get a prompt or some writing and that inspires me to go off on something else. And sometimes those are my favorite things just because they've kind of inspired something different in me and brought to light ideas that I wouldn't have thought of myself.
Okay.
Yeah. What was your inspiration for the writing and the depiction of, the whole story in your own perspective?
Well, there was a couple of things. Now it was about 2008, I think. It was only the second one I'd ever written. And there's an old song I heard called Old Paint. Anyway, I don't want to go too deeply into it. But I thought I could modify the song for a sort of a Newfoundland background. And but that only lasted a verse or two. And then I thought, gee whiz, maybe I just write a recitation out of this. So, they come from all over the place. But I guess originally it came from a song that I heard Jerry Squires sing. Marty knows him or knew him. And then I just fed into a bit of my background, I suppose. I've spent a lot of time in small boats out around the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. And, you know, the idea of going out for fish and maybe ending up going right around the planet with various encounters, it just kind of unraveled, you know. Sometimes I think the pen is just hooked to some part of the brain I'm not aware of, and it just,
Yeah.
I look down after a while and say, oh.
Um,
Well, I can ask you now, how did you decide which elements to pick out for recitation, of the recitation for illustration? Like the squid one, I really like that squid hanging
yeah.
over everything and the submarine and so on and so forth, and puts it all in a good scale as well. So when you went through it, you say, okay, I'll do that one, or how did you do that?
Yeah, well, the story very easily broke into particular sections, and I think that worked well because I could handle, you know, one bit at a time and feel like what's the main idea happening in this few. It tended to be like 2 or 3 sections, and so with that, I could think like what was the main action and what stood out to me as one, like a really sort of fun action scene in every section, because the whole thing is this adventure. So I wouldn't want it to be something like too simple or too like sitting down or whatever, you know, like something that was like happening and moves the story along once you turn the page. But it also was stuff that you know, I was inspired to draw, and I thought that that would make for the most interesting image, particularly that squid one. To me, I just could imagine this like very big squid with the boat and them like so small, like especially because they're kids, like these little kids on this boat in this big open ocean. And that imagery just felt exciting to me and inspired me to do the image quite easily.
That came out great.
So for your writing, apparently it was not originally intended to be for children. Why did you decide to change it to be a kid's book?
I've done that with a couple now, and I every now and then I'm scratching my head. I'm wondering if other ones might be adaptable. I did this recitation in a couple of different settings, and I was approached by a number of teachers who said, you know, that would make a great story for school kids, young age ones. And I have done recitation sort of shows for small kids at school. And they said, they more or less said, I think the opinion was, you know, it's a kind of a geography lesson. It's a bit of a social studies lesson, I think. And, you know, it appeals. They all seem to think it would be a great thing for young kids. So that hadn't really occurred to me. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad they brought it up. And Marnie had some input there too, our publisher. And she agreed that it would make a good kid's story, but it wasn't initially intended by that. But I suppose most of what I do is, I think every recitation I've ever done has no age limit. It could be done in front of any age group from 2 to 100. So they're all adaptable more or less. I have some where you go into space and you just have to change a few lines here and there. So it wasn't too hard to do that with this one.
Yeah, especially this one with it being in the style of a poem. To me, it works really well for a kid's book, but I also don't hold it and think that it's like particularly only for children. It feels like a fun sort of poetry with illustration kind of thing. And I enjoyed the story when I read it. It feels like it adapts to many different age groups. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to just ask you, how was illustrating Kimmy and Mike different from other ones? I haven't seen too many of your other works, but was this more or less similar, or was it different in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, every project is different in its own way. Sometimes working with the writer or more through the publishers and what they want or what they like about my work changes how I go about, achieving the final result. This one, there was a lot of freedom. Like I was given the poem and there wasn't a lot of, feedback at the beginning to say, oh, we want it to be this certain way. I think I had a lot of input this time about kind of how the look of the illustrations would be, the way they'd sit next to the writing, also in terms of the style of the composition, the style of the painting, and there was a lot of options there, which was a lot of fun for me because, I mean, direction is helpful, but it also sometimes it limits what can happen. And especially with something kind of interpretable like a poem where there's such strong imagery happening constantly. It was a lot of fun for me to be able to like dive into that and exactly how I pictured it or what made me excited about the story, and interpret it in my own way like that. And I mean, I think it turned out well. I feel like our combination of things feels like it's in the same wheelhouse. It like has the same kind of feeling. I'm very happy with the result because of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a great admirer because the one thing I wish I could do, well, a lot of things, but I wish I could draw and illustrate. I've tried, you know, it doesn't come out very nice. So I'm glad you handled that side of it.
Well, I'm glad to work with you. And you've written a lot of recitations. I'm not so confident in the whole writing area. I write in order to do my illustrations, but I'm not very confident in it. Like, what's your secret and how do you get inspired to do it and do it?
Well, you know, if you want to do it and you want to do it at my pace, you're going to have to wait till you're 52, because that's when I started, believe it or not. I never wrote one till I was 52. And the other thing I would recommend is that you move to St. John's, because that's what happened as well. Within a year moving back to St. John's here, I started writing these things, and I've now written just about 40. And the place seems to be very conducive. And also there's a great reception to them because it's part of our history here. This went on for years, a long time ago, as I allude to in the book, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's quite popular here, and people like it when you produce a new one. Usually do them live, but we're doing them on Zoom lately. So yeah, just what you observe, you know, and memories you collect over a lifetime. A lot of those are in my. You know, I'll use one of those, say, to add a verse in a recitation.
What about St. John's inspires you so much and makes you feel more creative?
Well, there's quite an atmosphere here. It goes, you know, it goes back 500 or 600 years. I suppose it goes back further than that. But you know, at one time, your entertainment, you made it yourself, and there was a lot of small outports around the coast, and people would, whenever they got a break, which wasn't too often, they'd sit, they'd play music and sing. But not everybody had instruments, but people generally had pretty vivid imaginations, I think, and just used what they saw in their everyday life. And, you know, the first one I ever did, I started off with 2 lines that rhymed, and then it went on, you know. Sometimes you have to search around for a word that'll rhyme. But yeah, there's a few sort of eccentric characters here and there. But there is everywhere, really, I suppose. But you know, they can inspire you, and various items you hear about, your own experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, the things you say about memories or your own experiences in a place affecting the work that you create, because I feel like that's exactly what I always describe about what inspires me to make work or makes me excited about it, is like all the things that feel like home, or the things that remind me of growing up, or the things that remind me of people that aren't in my life anymore, or, you know, like those kind of warm, fuzzy feelings just make me feel like those are the things that inspire me to make it my own thing. Like even just colors or certain patterns remind me of someone, and then it makes me happy. And so I want to put that in, you know, put them in my work in that way.
Yeah, I guess we're putting into words and pictures our lives in a way, you know, our various influences in them, I suppose.
Even if they're just secret. It's like for you to know, and it just makes you happy to create these things. And then when you're excited to create things, I think the result's always a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you this now: what's the effect of the pandemic on you know, illustrating?
Yeah, I mean, with freelance work, it's hard to know exactly what work you're not getting, but I'm very thankful for all of these books that I've been working on, because that's kept me busy, and it's kept me having work that, you know, was arranged before the pandemic. And then now that this is happening, I can just sit and be working on these projects. And so I'm very thankful for these things. I think I would be going crazy if I didn't have something to work on. But yeah, I mean, I work from home, so it's anyway. So it's like not just because of the pandemic. So for us, it's like a lot easier to just continue with that routine. But I mean, a big part of my creative process was seeing friends and having fun. So I feel like those things definitely affect my work, and that it's a little harder to just sit still all day at a desk than it used to be, because there's no break from that or being able to go. I mean, I do try to go on walks, but yeah.
Yeah, but, I've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions, or did these type of things, whatever the platform is, and that's one thing that resulted from this is we've lost the personal touch. But geez, the reach is way farther. I'm in storytelling sessions now, and there's people in Australia and Ireland, here, there, the UK, so it's good, but I sure miss the personal touch there, sitting with people and telling stories.
Yeah, you need a bit of both to balance it out, I think. Yeah. Also, one main thing I wanted to ask you was that you have some very formidable women in your recitations, and the mother in this one, for instance. And can you talk a little bit about your inspiration and who your inspiration might be, or why?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've known so many of them. I have three stories about my wife's grandmother. She's 100 now.
Wow.
What a life she's lived. She lived, well, this is not her first pandemic, put it that way, although she doesn't really remember the first one. She lived through the Depression. She lived through a lot of tragedies, which I won't go into. But, and, she had family in hard times, and she, her family was evicted from their home to make way for a national park. And, she not so very long ago in Newfoundland and Labrador, a lot of Canada, I suppose, times were pretty difficult. We talk about the pandemic now, but they had TB back then and a lot of other things. And she's still going strong. She made our wedding cake, 35 years ago. And I don't know, she's still making wedding cakes, maybe. She made hundreds, I suppose. My mother was a casualty nurse, I guess you'd say, in London during the Blitz, World War II. Her hospital was hit by bombs, So I've come to sort of respect these ladies a great deal for what they went through, in their earlier life and in their later life, right? I find they're inspirational. They're kind of unwavering. They keep I don't want to get too flowery, but they keep the world on an even keel, whereas sometimes some other people try to do the opposite. Anyway, yes, I've known quite a few, and I find them very inspirational.
Those are definitely some very inspirational women. Yeah, wow. And congratulations on being 100 for her.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's Super Nan, and 3 about her now, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Yeah, and she's doing okay in the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, she's living with her daughter right now out in Eastport, and she's slowed down a little bit, but we saw her not too long ago, and
good.
She's pretty good. Yeah, she was making Christmas cakes, I think.
Oh, always baking. Yeah.
You probably know some yourself.
Sorry?
You probably know some inspirational women yourself.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yes. So many people in my life inspire me to do things like just on a small scale. And, the main woman in my life, of course, is my mom. Yeah. And, forever she's been like a rock for me, not in that she's in an emotional way, in that like she's always not been afraid to have very like deep conversations with me about things, be there for me when I'm not at my best, or she's taught me to just be very open with your emotions and communicate, but also not be afraid to like just feel bad and cry sometimes. And in those kind of ways, I think like, she's she's been through a lot and has been very strong and has like some really great wisdom and perspective on how to deal with things that I don't, without knowing that or having that inspiration from her, I definitely would not be handling things in my life as well as I have done.
Her or Superman could probably row a boat around the world and get a few fish if they had to.
Yeah, she gets things done that she wants to get done. So yes. Yeah, I mean, you like to fish as well. Do you have any stories about your fishing trips or anything from the sea?
Well, I've got a few that are sort of nautical flavored, I suppose. There's another one called Vessels. Now, in this area, we have a small, I could call it a rowboat, and we call it a Rodney. It was named, the original design was apparently Admiral Rodney 500 years ago, used it to get around St. John's Harbor. So people call it Rodney. But in the next little cove, people will call it a punt. And in the next little cove, they'll say, no, that's a dory. So there's no trouble to write one called Vessels, which is about the argument between a number of people about what's the right name for this particular boat, So yeah, and in the summer we get ours out. It was made by an old boat builder here named Henry Volke, who just passed away. Actually, built hundreds of boats, and it's a lot of fun. I wish I had a picture to show you. It's got a little sail, but it's just basically a little wooden rowboat, and it's a gorgeous thing. I suppose it's sort of a schooner hull, and it's really nice to row and sail.
Yeah. So great. Well, I'm glad that you were inspired to do this book, and I'm glad that you were inspired to work with me. I think that it was a really fun experience and just such a lovely story to interpret.
Okay, well, good. Well, maybe we'll get another chance another time.
Yeah.
Looking at my list the other day, and I said, gee, I wonder if that one would make a good kid's story. I wonder if that one would make a good kid's story. So I saw a couple there that, you'd have to change a few lines, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah, let me know.
Great. Well, thank you for that little conversation, Dave and Lily. Dave, you're dark.
Oh, hang on a second.
So that was recorded a little while ago, just so we could have sort of give you the opportunity to get to know Dave and Lily a little bit. And if any of the people who are watching would like to ask them questions about the book, that would be great. We do have some congratulations that have come in. There's a smiley face from Adam D'Souza. Congratulations, Lily Snowden-Fine from Mark David Smith. Congrats to all hands from John Clark. Suzanne Bryan is applauding. Randy Crane says congrats to Dave and Lily. And Aaron Lougheed says wonderful congrats. So that's wonderful. Thank you all for those comments. And again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Dave and Lily, that would be wonderful. I was really glad we switched to that little recorded interview, actually, because just as we were about to, my cat came down. She's very old, she's very cranky, and she really wanted some fish for dinner, and she made herself very loudly known. So it was nice that the recording came on and drowned her out.
I wonder she didn't send you off around the world in a 16-foot punt.
Well, if she got insistent, Dave, I was going to have her send you off around the world.
Oh, yes. Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the one who got the boat by Henry Volke. So.
Yeah, I know your cat quite well. And sourpuss, I would say, yes.
Mm-hmm. Frank. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll ask a question and hope that somebody else will join in as well. So, Lily, do you have a favorite illustration? I know you really enjoyed doing the squid, and it was really fun to have a little animator, the little fast time drawing that you did for us to put up at the very beginning of the launch. Was that your favorite illustration, or was there another one that you?
That one was probably my favorite to paint, just because like all the tentacles and things. It was like a very fun image to work on. But in terms of the actual final image, I think my favorite one is the crying merman, just because it's such a funny image, and I laughed when I read that in the story, and I liked him being quite manly, but also just so tender, and with his little pufferfish friend on the other page. And yeah, I think that one turned out really nice and kind of adds a little bit of humor to some of the other images, and is a nice tone in the book. So yeah, it was I thought brilliant. Not only because it's wonderful, but I don't know that you could even know this, but for the past couple of years, there's been a calendar produced by the local, is it the Beard and Mustache Club of Newfoundland? It's for charity, and it's called the Merbuys. And so they go and they take pictures of really quite hairy men
in mermaid fins, lounging all around the province, and then they sell it for charity. So when I looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, she knows about the mermaids.
I didn't, but I love that. Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's a really, and they've raised money for really, really good charities. They've raised a lot of money for really good charities through the sales of that.
Wow. Well,
So,
who knew that could raise so much money? I love that.
it was wonderful. We got a couple more comments. There's hi Uncle Dave, it's Sienna, congratulations. And
Hi,
David,
Sienna.
who gives no last name, says beautiful book and great interviews. Great. Yeah, I also
Nice
I
to hear
thought.
from you, Sienna.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, keep talking, Dave. It's your evening,
No,
not.
I was just saying, nice to hear from my niece Sienna. She's over in Moncton, and haven't seen her for quite a while, and kind of miss her a bit. Anyway, it's nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part of the writing, Dave? I've talked about like my favorite illustration, but did you have a favorite part of it that either like came really naturally or you had the most fun writing?
Oh, geez. Well, the part where the mother says, "Well, I'll be right home. I'm just going to go down to Rio for the bingo game tonight. In Rio de Janeiro." I have a dim memory of when that struck me when I was writing this thing. I said, "Oh, that's great." So I suppose, yeah, I really like the idea of Mom just sitting, I'm just going to nip down to Rio for bingo, and I'll be home in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that.
I like that too.
I can well imagine Super Nan doing that.
And bingo is a very Newfoundland pastime. If you're not out fishing, you may well be out playing bingo.
Oh yes. Well, bingo and Nan featuring quite a few of mine. There's one there which is an ultimate bingo smackdown between Nan and a polar bear. But anyway, that's another one. Won't get into that.
We've had Carol White who's saying congratulations to you both, and she said she's going to order a copy for her little free library in Comfort Cove, which is a lovely idea. I like that thought.
Nice, good idea. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I could say I may be doing readings of this in the schools at some time in the not too distant future, and that gives me, it reminds me that the times I've been in the schools doing them I've done them for grade 3s up to grade 11s. And the grade 3s are just such a blast. They're so funny. They'll fixate on one thing in it and they'll chatter about that, and it's just wonderful. And you get to the grades 5s and 6s, and they're really interested and ask all kinds of questions, and then it goes up. But I have to say, I love going to schools to do these stories. The reactions are fantastic.
Lily, have you ever done any school classroom visits or virtual visits? I know they're starting to do quite a few here. I mean, we used to have a project or a program, I suppose we still do, but it's not really happening because of the pandemic. Art Smarts, where they would send artists who would go into classrooms and develop projects with kids. Do you have opportunities like that at all in BC?
That sounds so fun. I would love to do something like that. I haven't had the opportunity to do really any proper in-person events because only my first book was out when it wasn't a pandemic, and so like every other opportunity has been really affected by the fact that events have been canceled, haven't been able to do things like that. But I mean, hopefully we'll be able to make up for it in the future and kind of like go back on it and do some things like that. Because I mean, I remember when I was in school having those more creative assemblies or like presentations from artists, and those things really open you up to different careers that you don't really hear about as much in school, especially if your school doesn't have particularly good arts program or something like that. And elementary school is such a like important age to start learning about all those things. So I think it'd be just so fun to like inspire young kids or have the feedback of having them really like it, or I guess not like it, being really honest. They're very honest at that age. So maybe they would actually be the most honest about what they think of my work. And that's the best critique. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, even if you don't find you can hook into that programs like that in BC. There's always Canadian Children's Book Week, and every year they put out a call for illustrators and authors to submit to participate. So I know this year it's going to be virtual, but that's a wonderful program. So
Cool.
I'm pause now to say we've got a few more comments. Harry Paddon, well done. We're looking forward to getting our copies. Michael
Harry.
Porter, did I hear correctly that the free shipping offer is only within Canada, unsurprisingly? Yes, it is. Sorry. And Mark David Smith, I noticed in the recitation a number of imperfect rhymes that you perfect through accent. Reminds me a lot of rap. Dave, who is your biggest hip hop influence?
Ooh, Snoop Doggy Doggerel.
That's what you call yourself.
Yeah, that's my other stage name. Actually, before I started writing recitations, I wrote a rap song. I certainly won't try and remember how it goes. I did have it memorized once, but that was in the early years, and I think I looked a little suspect, trying to perform a rap song. But it was a great bit of fun, and I think I better stick with what I'm doing.
You seem to be on a roll with it, Dave.
Yeah. I'm not going to start spinning on my head. I better not. Yeah.
No,
Wouldn't
no.
be good.
I neglected, and this was a terrible oversight on my part, when I introduced you and started the evening, I neglected to mention that the book has received a starred review with Kirkus Reviews, which is a wonderful, wonderful honor. It's a real coup. It's certainly the first time that Running the Goat book has received a starred review. First time for Dave, and I think Lily, I don't know if you got starred reviews on your first, but that's it's really wonderful, and we were just delighted to get that kind of feedback and encouragement. So.
Yeah, it's a thrill. It's a thrill to read a review like that. Not something I'm used to, but I had one or two, but it's just wonderful to see that. So,
yeah. Well, and
good
congratulations.
for us, Lily.
Yeah.
And Marnie.
Well, it's your work that's getting that. So that's.
But you made it happen, so
Well, we all did.
Yeah. So Lily, you want to tell us a little bit about the next book that you're doing? It is The Deepest Dig, is that?
Yeah. Actually, Mark David Smith is the writer. So thank you for being supportive. And that book also wonderful. I mean, it's so much fun to work on all these different projects, especially with different writers and different kind of stories and takes on how I do my illustration for each project is always really different, as I said in the other interview. But yeah, this book is a narrative about a little kid who is bored on a rainy day and finds something very strange in his backyard and investigates with his dog. So it's a really sweet story. The character, I sort of played a bit more with characters, and it's more linear, so it's all in these sort of same spaces, but different angles of his garden, and got to draw some really fun flowers and things like that, and his very unattentive parrots just doing their thing, being like, yeah, go off and play. So yeah, that was really fun, and a whole other experience. Also full bleed pages, so they're like these big 2-page spreads with the writing in that, and a totally different format to the way that we did it, which was very like laid out on the other page. And I think both of those things add to how the composition happens and adds a lot to the feeling of the book, which is fun. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing. I've seen a couple on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I've seen a couple of sample illustrations, and I have a little bookstore in Torres Cove, and I carry lots of lovely kids' books, so that will definitely be in the shop once it's out.
Wonderful. Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'll give it's Owl Kids is the publisher, so I'll give them a plug. Great stuff. Yeah. And Dave, what have you got in the works now? I know you've got a performance next week, don't you? A virtual performance. Yeah.
If anybody out there is, here's a plug, I suppose. If anybody's sort of interested in the whole recitation thing, on April 7th at 7 p.m. Newfoundland time, you have to work that out, we're having a recitation extravaganza, a recitation-aganza on the St. John's Storytelling Group. They're quite frequently putting on shows. Anyway, I'm part of a 4-person troupe called From Stage to Stage, and we're all doing recitations. So we'll be doing a mixture of old ones and new ones, and it'll be April 7th. If you're interested, St. John's Storytelling on Facebook or on, they have a website. We have a website. So yeah, I'm busy with that. I just finished another one. I just got back from Mars, actually. I was moose hunting on Mars, and my snowmobile broke down, and this other little vehicle came along, and you know, I bought a few parts off it. So NASA is a little bit cross, but it all turned out well.
Dave, you seem to travel intergalactically a lot, actually, in your recitations. There are visitations.
Well,
there,
yeah.
Lily, you're kind of lucky. He just stuck to planet Earth on this one because frequently.
But it is important to isolate.
Yes. yes. I'm wondering if Kimmy and Mike could go and do anything to help out in the Suez Canal these days, because I think that might be part 2 of the recitation.
That's a reasonable assumption, I think. Yeah. They could certainly tell them how to actually steer straight through the canal next time, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Hi. He just came in from outside. Stay.
Okay, it's your cat. As long as it's
Not my cat.
Yeah, it's my cat. Yeah.
Okay.
He's wanting to, he has a lot to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he going to give us a review on the book?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
About however many 2 thumbs. That's all he has.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 claws up.
And we have a comment from Lana Shoup. I think Lana's joining us from Alberta, saying Kimmy and Mike are delightful. Oh, thanks, Lana.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Great. Does anybody else have a comment or a question, something they'd like to ask Dave and Lily? I'm not seeing anything.
Don't be shy.
Oh, Donna Setov. Can't wait to read the book. Love the illustrations.
Thank you.
Good.
Great. Well, Dave, maybe I can ask you to give us a couple more stanzas of the recitation. Is that possible?
Okay, where were we? We had just been under threat of getting keeled hauled by some pirates.
That sounds...
Okay, yes. And Kim knocked out 2 dozen, one after another, and said, "Now go on home, boys, or I'll wake up my brother." Next, they ran into a merman named Saul, who told them he wanted to visit Nepal. "But they say you can't swim there," he said with a sigh, "so I guess I'll just sit here and blubber and cry." "Don't be so sooky," Kim said on a rant. "I'd like to visit the moon, but I can't." "I suppose not," said Saul, and he cheered up a bit. "I have a nice blowfish if your mom would like it." Politely declining the offer from Saul, they rode to Australia and set out a trawl. Then they rode round New Zealand, came back for a look, but there was still nothing there that mother would cook. Off Hawaii, they surfed on some 100-foot waves, won a prize and got decorated with lays. Eastbound again, Kimmy said, "Look out front, 'tis Mom coming out, in Father's old punt." "Now where in the world have you young people been? Your poor old father," she said, "what a sin. He came all over sooky and started to sicken when his supper was only a bucket of chicken." "Sorry, Mom," said Mike, "there's not much on the go." "Not much on the go," she said. "No, I know." Her Rodney was full of the fish she had caught, from the keel to the top of the tot where she sat. "Get on home out of it, through the Panama Canal, and get your father his tea. You know he's not well. I'm just going to dart round Cape Horn while it's light, and drop into Rio for bingo tonight." Feeling slightly dejected, the 2 started rowing, not really watching out where they were going, till all of a sudden they ran hard ashore on the Galapagos island of San Salvador. "Oh my," said Mike, "it's as hot as a sauna." "We don't call this hot," said a talking iguana. "And don't get ideas, because I don't taste like chicken." Then his speech got all slurred because his forked tongue kept flicking. So they shoved off again and headed northeast. Mike said, "I hope we can get a few conners at least." "We better get something," Kim said, starting to row. "Her mother won't give us some razzing, I know." A short while later, in the fading daylight, the Panama Canal's western gate hove in sight. "Not far now, buddy," Kim said with a grin, but a sign said, "We're closed." Please come back again. Oh my, said Mike. Well, that's it, thundered Kim. See, they weren't really supposed to be out after 10. Pass up that oar, Kim said with a roar, till I dig a way through to the Caribbean shore. From that point on home, the trip was routine, and they were tied to the stage at about 9:15. Father was crousting, wanting his tea, and grumbling about gas from that old KFC. Next morning, their mother tied up to the wharf. She'd won jackpot in Rio and headed off north. The fish she had caught was all salted and dried. Don't say you never got nothing, she cried. And so that's the story of Michael and Kim. For Newfoundlanders, they're about average, but then, if it came to a racket, I know that I'd rather tackle them both than tackle their mother. So there, you got the whole thing.
Thank you. Well, we've got a few more comments. Michael Fortescue, who's writing from the UK, says, Lily, this means, I guess, that I'm closer to Dave than you are, because he geographically, as well as, familiarly. But and Brenda Inkpin says, congratulations, looking forward to getting a copy of the book. And David says, love Dave's reading voice, such lovely character. Book would make a great animated short. Yes, it would indeed. And Jeannie Germani says, congratulations to you both. I'm looking forward to ordering one.
Hi, Jane.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess we're kind of getting on. It's about 10 to 8 now. So we'll just check and see if there's anybody else who has a question for Dave or for Lily. And if not, then maybe we'll say our thanks and call it an evening. No? Okay. Well, I will remind people that for this weekend, we're doing free shipping in Canada when you order through Running the Goat's website, runningthegoat.com, and use the coupon code Kimmy when you go through the checkout. But also, I would really strongly encourage people to check with their local booksellers, independent bookstores, especially to see if it's not in stock. It can definitely be ordered, and we would love to see you supporting your local independent bookstores. And there will be books available in the UK soon. They'll be heading to the UK distributor really, really soon. So hopefully by next month, there will be books available in the UK as well. Suzanne Bryan says, congratulations. Thank you for an entertaining evening. It has been fun. Looking forward to getting a copy.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you all so much. Thank you again to Dave and to Lily for their beautiful work and for helping, for coming together this evening to celebrate. Oh, Max Fine says, well done. That was great. Congrats. And thanks to Rachel Dragland for technical wizardry. And again, thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Canada Book Fund, and Newfoundland and Labrador's Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, and Recreation. I pause all the time because they keep changing the name of the department. But anyhow, thank you to the province because they've been very helpful too. So that's it for now. This launch will be available on YouTube, our YouTube channel afterwards. So if you joined us late and you wanted to see what happened at the beginning, or if you just loved it so much you want to hear it all again, that possibility will be there for you at least for a little while. So thank you again so much. Thanks to Dave and Lily for their wonderful work. And again, this is the wonderful thing itself. Kimmy and Mike, sorry for the glare. And it's been such a joy to see this book come to life. And I hope it brings a lot of pleasure and happiness to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.